Welcome to the first ever episode of the Bulldozer Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Bull. Let's just jump right in. This is going to be a dynasty football podcast. Obviously it'll focus on all NFL and fantasy, but it's going to have a dynasty focus. It's just kind of, my passion for the fantasy football game has come through the dynasty. I started playing about 10 years ago, I'd say. Maybe a little less, maybe a little more. I don't know. I've been playing fantasy football as long as I can remember. I remember rooting on Javon Walker and, as a little Christmas kid, and Brian Westbrook, and, my first ever draft pick was Steve McNair over Peyton Manning. That's probably why I'm doing this. It's still haunting me to this day. So anyways, I'm in about 4 dynasty leagues right now. I try to keep it under, 5 or less, just so that way I can focus on each of them. And I don't bow out. I always try and stay in them, and as long as they're active, and as long as they're going. The longest standing league I'm in right now is my Empire 2.0 league and my 2 quarterback league. The Empire League is the second iteration. If you don't know what an Empire League is, that's when someone wins twice in a row. The league resets itself. So this is the second iteration. Took us a few runs before we could get the double victory, and then the 2 quarterback league. Actually started as a 2 quarterback league, and we eventually changed it into a super flex league that it is now. I'd say that's probably the roster that I've held on to for the longest. I've still got, my first original draft pick when we started the league up. I was a little ballsy, and I am a Bucks fan. As you can see, I'm wearing my Bucks jersey. If you're listening, you can hear it maybe. I don't know. But Mike Evans was my first pick there. Still running strong in that league. But each league is in a different situation, and we'll break that down maybe a little bit later in this episode or future episodes. That is something that I want to do with the podcast, is kind of go through my personal teams, give you a look at the inside trades that I make, my kind of mentality on it. Most of my leagues, or most of my teams in the leagues, are kind of in similar settings. I went through this period where I wanted the same person on every team. It was weird. I don't do that so much anymore. I do try to diversify my shares now, but you'll see some crossover between them when we eventually start getting into them. And then aside from that, we can kind of eventually, once I get enough people listening maybe, or enough questions, I can start diving into your guys' questions and diving into what you guys need and things like that. But I've got the other 2 leagues that I'm in are the Traders Paradise League, which is, I don't want to say I have a favorite league, but that is probably the one I pay the most attention to. It's got a lot of trades going on all the time, hence the name Traders Paradise. And it's pretty much just a low money league, so it's really just pride on if you're winning. That one has kind of been through the ups and downs. We can roll through that, of course. We'll go through all the rosters eventually. And then I've got the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, which is actually just a 10-man league, but I did take a kind of a different approach on that one, and I tried to maybe acquire some more picks because it was only a 5-year commitment for that league. So I'm trying to do a pretty quick competitive dynasty run on that before everyone realizes that they're playing with someone they can't compete with, But anyways, some segments and topics that we want to go over. Starters. Let's start with the news from around the league. You've got some crazy stuff going on this offseason. We've got the Packers getting rid of another 15-year MVP quarterback. or seemingly so, because that's still up in the air. You've got the Ravens spurning their MVP quarterback, Lamar Jackson, and kind of kicking him to the curb, it seems like. Got a lot of quarterback carousel, as we were expecting every year. It seems that way. Jimmy Garoppolo is now a Raider. You've got Baker Mayfield, now Tampa Bay Buccaneer. Me personally being a fan of the Bucs and a fan of Baker, I'm excited, but I've seen enough of it. I probably know better now. And then we've got Trey Lance and Brock Purdy figuring out their thing over in San Francisco. So lots of different stuff going on in the NFL today. Each episode will definitely be trying to break down, fantasy implications and how we feel about it, how we feel what's going on in the NFL. Personally, right now, just on the main two, the Aaron Rodgers and the Lamar Jackson, thinking about, how I would love for it to just go down. Would love to see Lamar land with the Bucs. There's been rumors. There's the Reddit streams and the one-off rumors that he might come to Tampa. I would absolutely love that. He would just immediately click, find himself in a perfect situation with Mike Evans, Godwin. You've got up-and-coming Cade Otton, Rachaad White out of the backfield, a stellar defense. They're just missing that quarterback that just left, unfortunately. And I'd love to see Lamar also just stay with the Ravens. Mark Andrews needs it. J.K. Dobbins needs it. Rashad Bateman needs it. The whole Ravens organization needs it. Quite honestly, the Ravens are nothing without Lamar Jackson on their team. An MVP quarterback who is a multi-level threat, can get them deep into the playoffs on his legs alone. If you just put a good team around him, I don't see why the Ravens. I know that we're a fantasy podcast show, so a dynasty fantasy podcast show, but quite honestly, the Ravens, you're messing up, man. You're messing up big. And for fantasy, the implications of him staying with the Ravens would be the same. Just consistent. You got Mark Andrews, you got J.K. Dobbins, consistently getting some checkdowns. You got Lamar taking off. You've got just play action ability. His ability is unquestioned. I don't understand why he hasn't been signed. And the Ravens should try and figure it out, even though he's requested a trade now. So we'll see where he ends up. Hopefully that happens sooner than later. And then same deal with Rodgers. Hopefully we get a trade from him too. He is just stuck, it seems like, he isn't, but the Packers are stuck on the compensation. And as soon as he gets to the Jets, we'll feel better about our Garrett Wilson shares. We'll feel better about our Breece Hall shares for maybe the next year or two. Hopefully Rodgers, does the old Brady Peyton thing where he has 2 more years minimum left in him. So that way at least it's, in that 2 to 3 year window that we like to hear about in Dynasty. Anyways, moving on. We've got a lot of free agent stuff going on. Nothing big lately. I know. I'd say the other big news from the offseason is Sean Payton going to Denver. I think that's absolutely huge for all of your Denver player shares. You've got Russell, who's he almost has to work. If he doesn't work this year, he's done. And then you've got Javonte, who's still recovering. But, if you've ever seen any Sean Payton offense in New Orleans, the running backs are always prominent. No matter how many there are, they're all very, very vital to the system. So when Javonte's healthy, I fully expect him to be an integral cog of this team for sure. And then you've got, Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, KJ Hamler, Tim Patrick. I don't expect all of them to be there this upcoming season, but who knows? Maybe they will. And that's only good things for Russell Wilson. And, Jerry Jeudy's up and coming. Cortland Sutton's a big-bodied receiver. Quite honestly, the whole offense should thrive more from Sean Payton being there. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. Who knows? moving on from the news, and kind of just what I want to talk about a little bit more is, personal trade reviews of my own league. There's Trader's Paradise, which I've told you has had many, many, many trades. Eventually, I'd love for this segment to get to where it's, just me going over your guys' trades and kind of giving you advice and making sure that you're not messing up your teams, or at least getting the validation that you need before you hit that accept button. I personally love, making sure I get at least one or two people, opinions on my trades before I go ahead and just make them. There's a couple people I trust out there that I will shoot a message to, and usually they know if they message back, they'll see a trade in the league chat within the hour after I've thought it over myself. But anyways, let's go through some of the trades that have happened Let's start in Trader's Paradise. My most recent trade was a small trade. But I made it before the Baker Mayfield news. And this is something you guys should do every offseason, because people get really hyped up on those rookie picks. You guys know that. I mean, you probably want the rookie picks yourself. But what ends up happening is, people forget about the players, and their value drops, and they just haven't seen them on a field for a while, and they start to look at these rookies, and they start to think, oh, this person's going to be a plug and play, and I can just put them in. But that is not the case. The rookies always take time. Lately we've had some rookie wide receiver classes that have just absolutely, boomed. But for the meantime, during this offseason leading up to the rookie draft, look at some veterans that are just absolutely cheaper than they should be. Now, it's a little harder now that free agency's opened up. I made this trade right before free agency opened up, but it was, let's see here. I acquired, it's going to be real small, nothing crazy, but it's just, I've got Trey Lance on my team, and I saw going into the offseason, okay, there's no way the Bucks roll into the regular season with only Kyle Trask. And so what I did was I looked at the field of quarterbacks, and I went ahead and doubled down on the rumors that were coming in, and I said, okay, Baker Mayfield is rumored to be a Buccaneer. It's a fit. It makes sense. It's at least a 1-year prove it deal where he's going to be able to come out here and kind of show what he's got. So what I did was I went ahead and I messaged the person who's got the Baker Mayfield, and I just gave him an offer that wasn't anything crazy. It was Tutu Atwell and a fourth, and he accepted. But at the end of the day, you've got to look at, okay, are they holding on to that vet without any roster room? Or are they holding on to that vet without any upside? Or are they tired? How long have they been holding on to that player? Because if they've been holding on to that player for a while, I guarantee you they're not going to be very happy. So to give you some context, I made that trade on March 10th, right before the free agency period opened. Baker was traded. This is crazy. On January 14th, this is after the season. He was traded for a first. Baker Mayfield and a second for a first-round pick. Oh, okay, never mind. That was last offseason. So last offseason, he was worth a first. Baker Mayfield and a second was worth a first. Now, I have traded for him, and he's still got some value. He's still a number one overall pick, and I think he revitalized some of his value by playing with the Rams and doing well towards the end of the season, showing some NFL-style throws. It's unfortunate that he had to play through that injury in Cleveland and with all of the horrible, but he was still a top-tier talent quarterback. He's only 27, and quite honestly, I feel like I made a steal here. Now, I didn't necessarily need quarterback. I've got to give you kind of run through my team. Like I said, I've got Kyle Trask, I've got Justin Fields, I've got Daniel Jones, and I've got Trey Lance and Brock Purdy. So I definitely don't need quarterback. It's a little hesitant after Daniel Jones, obviously. It's like, who's your third quarterback? But one of them is going to get playing time at any point in the season, given injuries or given, a benching or whatever. So that was one of the most recent trades I've made. I've made some crazier ones, obviously, and we'll get. Maybe we can. You know what? Let's just find one more. Let's find one more trade that we've made recently, and go through that. Okay, let's see here. So let's look at because I also traded. So I had Trey Lance and Kyle Trask. And towards the end of the season, I started to see what was going on with Brock Purdy. Obviously wanted the insurance for my Trey Lance shares because I invested in Trey Lance everywhere. I don't want to get into that right now. So anyways, I traded for Purdy right during his playoff run. I traded, so that was kind of when his value was at its peak. I traded Van Jefferson, a third in 2023, and then a 2025 second for Brock Purdy and a 2023 fourth. Quite honestly, I feel like if I wanted to, I could go shop Brock Purdy as soon as his surgery is done. It would be preferable, but I could shop Brock Purdy right now and get more than what I gave for him. And that's kind of how I like to do trades. I like to make sure that, the future has some runway to give. That way I can trade them for a little bit more than what I got. And it's always that way. It's a stocks game. You gotta make sure that you're always gaining value. Don't get too attached to any of these guys. I have made that mistake too many times. And you'll see that, throughout this process when we're talking about some of these rookies in upcoming episodes. I get attached. Just like everyone else, I play this game like everyone else. These are all home leagues that I'm talking about. I am not an analyst by any means. I don't consider myself one. I am not a genius on this stuff by any means. I just love it. I enjoy it. Just live it every single day. You'd probably be, annoyed if you had to spend any. I know my girlfriend is. She hears way too much football news. Even, the other day she was like, "It's the off season. Isn't football over?" And I said, football never ends, especially when you're doing dynasty football. So yeah, just if you're ever questioning why I'm doing something the way I'm doing, it's probably right, because I have no better inkling on what to do in this dynasty football realm than you do. But maybe we can figure it out together through this podcast and through all of the advice that we're going to be giving each other back and forth. So anyways, let's just dive into maybe a little bit of personal situations, because I don't have any stuff in the mailbag yet, obviously. It's just all me, what I want to talk about right now until we get your guys' opinions and stuff. So let's just maybe dive into some personal scenarios. So this Trader's Paradise League. You know what? I think that's how we'll probably do it. We'll go team by team in the next couple episodes and just kind of run through them. Give you guys kind of a lowdown of what I got going on, what the league has got going on, and, maybe you can tell me I'm an idiot with what I plan on doing. Maybe, I'm just giving all my league mates every bit of my my intentions and not really gaining anything from doing this podcast, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. So anyways, to start, I've got Justin Fields, Danny Dimes, Baker Mayfield, Trey Lance, Brock Purdy, and Kyle Trask at the quarterback position. I've got a running back room that could use some work, in my opinion. I've got Alvin Kamara, J.K. Dobbins, Kareem Hunt, Gus Edwards, Elijah Mitchell, Isaiah Spiller, Jalen Warren, and Jerome Ford and Jordan Mason. Nothing special. Obviously, I forgot about Javonte. He's sitting in my flex. I wish IR was running all off season, but it's not. So I've got Javonte, Kamara, Dobbins. Not terrible. Obviously, some skill guys, but Kamara's getting older. Anyways, receivers. This is my favorite part of this team. I've got A.J. Brown, Chris Olave, Michael Pittman, Terry McLaurin, Scrolling down here, Isaiah McKenzie, KJ Osborne, Kadarius Toney, and John Mechie. So some upside, some young guys for sure. We've got some runway, but you're going to probably hear this team and you're probably going, what the heck? These are all studs, or maybe not. I don't know. But you'll see why. You'll see why in a second. Don't worry. I don't have a lot of draft capital. My tight end is Kyle Pitts, and then I've got Cole Kmet and Daniel Bellinger. I think that position is shored up. I do not need to worry about that for many years probably, unless if there's some major injuries or major crazy things going on with those three guys. And then my draft capital, this is where it kind of gets bad. I've only got one pick in this year's draft. It's the 104, which is nice. Obviously, there's a lot of value there. I've got one first-round pick next year. It's an early one, it looks like. And then we've got a fourth rounder in that year's draft. And then we've got a second in 2025. Nothing else until 2026. So I've traded a lot of my seconds, thirds, fourths. I even traded a lot of my firsts, but I got a couple back through some various trades I made this offseason. It's kind of murky down in the draft capital area, but you got to do what you got to do, and we're kind of shooting for that window now to win. So if you were to look at this team, maybe, right now what I'm looking at doing with that 104 is just taking best player available. It's kind of how I operate in rookie drafts. Do I want to take a quarterback? Absolutely not. This year, it's looking like I might have to. There is the four quarterback rookies that are kind of coveted right now. It depends on how you feel about Will Levis. And then there's also Bijan. So right now I'm obviously slotted in to take a quarterback at that 104 spot amidst the Anthony Richardson combine, Caleb Stroud, and Bryce Young. You've got, why am I calling him Caleb? No. CJ Stroud. I'm thinking of Caleb Williams from next year. Anyways, CJ Stroud and you've got Will Levis there. Like it's just quarterback central at the 104 spot. So I've tried to, talk about trading down with a couple of people. It just seems like they're happy with where they're at. I've even tried to trade up to the 101, but they kind of want a little bit more than I'm willing to give. So it's looking like I'm kind of just in that spot, taking the value that I can. I've thought about, reaching for some Jackson Smith and Jigba, but we'll dive into my rookies and the rankings a little bit later, maybe in another episode, obviously, and kind of give you why I'm not planning on doing that in this draft at the 104 spot, just because it doesn't quite add up, doesn't quite make sense. So anyways, that is Trader's Paradise right now. It's looking kind of good for the next 2 to 3 years. I'm looking like I can make a run. Looks like I'll be competing with some of the other teams. There's definitely some top heavy teams in this league for sure. There's a gentleman who's got way too many receivers, and I just can't even imagine how he got those. So it'll be hard to keep up with a few, but we should be in the playoffs and we should be pushing for the championship. So that's all you can really ask for in a dynasty league. I like to personally just get rid of picks and for proven talent, and make a push as often as you can. No one's getting a trophy for the best rebuild or the best, the most amount of draft picks. The person's getting a trophy for beating everybody else. So that's kind of where I've shifted this offseason. I used to love picks. I used to love trying to build that way and just build this absolute mega team. But by the time you get to where it's a mega team, it's usually not, and you're just sitting there with what you started with. So anyways, just to kind of wrap up this first episode that I'm bringing to you guys. I'm trying to figure out what we're going to be doing. I'm probably going to be posting this obviously on the pod channels that I can. You can listen, I'll definitely have it on Podbean. We'll definitely try and put it on Spotify if I can. We'll try and put it on Apple, like all of them, all of the ones I can. And I might even be putting this up on the YouTube. But for right now, you can find me at Bulldozer Fantasy Football or at Bulldozer FF on Twitter. Ask me any questions, please. I promise you at this stage, if you ask me a question, it'll be guaranteed to get on to the podcast, because I've got nothing else to talk about really aside from my teams and what I'm doing with them. So yeah, ask me some questions, send me your thoughts, send me your advice, tell me what you think about this year's upcoming rookie class, and then make sure to follow me and share, subscribe, do all of that stuff. I have no idea what it does yet because I'm so new to this, and I'd really appreciate it though. Thanks so much. Bye bye.